In other news this week, a woman narrowly escaped a fire which gutted her flat in Varelbeg on Tuesday morning. The City Fire Brigade was called to Repulse House a little before 8:30, with the fire under control within minutes. A woman who had been sleeping inside the flat was helped to escape by two men who were working in the estate. Nobody was hurt, and an investigation is now underway, with initial reports suggesting a lit cigarette may have been the cause. Following the incident, our reporter Davina Barbara spoke to the City Fire Brigade's Brian Maniasco.
Well, we got a report there was a flat on fire. We were actually doing the road test we usually do at 8 in the morning. As we turned the roundabout down by Harbour Views, we actually saw the very dense black smoke. So we approached the flat in question. I immediately called for the third ambulance, as I knew more or less that it was going to be something out of the normal. So on our arrival, we saw the smoke coming through the windows and the doors. So we immediately committed a BA crew with a hose line straight from the appliance, and we entered the flat in question. It was completely smoke-locked, and there were some flames. It was under control within 5 to 10 minutes, and then we proceeded to ventilate the whole area. The flat in question was completely gutted by flames and by the smoke. We actually started evacuating people from the building, but within 15 and 20 minutes the area was cleared, so people were sent back to the houses.
A lucky escape too for the tenant, who in fact got rescued by some workers, so that was a close call for the person.
A very close call. Apparently there were two Spanish workers on the building itself. They saw the smoke coming from the main entrance. They started knocking on the door. Eventually they kicked the door open, and apparently the tenant, as she heard the knocks, she woke up and she was dragged out of the flat by the two Spanish workers.
And no injuries reported?
No injuries. She was just suffering from shock, but nothing else.
What about damage perhaps to the rest of the building in question?
The rest of the building, I can say it's quite safe, because due to the fact that it was a ground level, water damage was minimum, so nothing much.
It's a busy time on our roads due to the fact that school started again, but you happen to be on the road, so I suppose that really didn't affect the call-out time?
No, not at all. I think the call came at 8:24 and we were there within 4 minutes.
And should any of the other tenants living in the building be concerned at all?
No, not at all, not at all. We've called Building and Works, so they will deal with the matter themselves, but apparently there's nothing to worry about.
Civil servants will begin working the newly scheduled working hours on the 5th of May, according to a Unite bulletin distributed to members. The two options available to civil servants are a straight-through year-round 8 till 3:30 shift, or a day ending at 4:30, but with summer hours. The changes mean that public counters will be open earlier and stay open till later.
When the new civil service hours come into effect, they'll represent a culmination of years of negotiations between unions and government to find a solution which keeps workers happy and at the same time keeps counters open for longer. According to a union circular issued to members, there are two options. The first allows civil servants to work straight through between 8 a.m. and 3:30 all year round. Those who decide to go for this option will have to work an extra 15 minutes a day to make up for last year's summer hours. Option 2 means working straight through from 8:45 to 4:30 and from 8 a.m. to 2:30 in summer. There are still small details to iron out. For example, the traditional 1-hour lunch break is done away with, but workers are still entitled to mini breaks after working a certain number of hours. These are issues which are expected to be managed at departmental level. In fact, in its bulletin, Unite confirms that due to operational reasons, there are still some areas which are under consultation. No official announcement has been made yet, but in his New Year message, the Chief Minister said that work had started on negotiations with Unite and the GGCA even before the GSLP Liberals had come into office, and that the new hours were expected to become a reality early in the new year. He also said this would mean longer counter hours and, together with the rollout of e-government services, would mean better interaction between citizens and government services.
And we'll be back with more of this week's news after this break.
Come on, the rock, recycle, get your glass and cans, gotta put them in those bins. Recycling needs you. Come on, gimme, yeah!
Recycling? Don't make a song and dance about it.
The biggest cooking show in Gibraltar returns. Who will go from amateur chef to rock chef?
I think I could win the competition.
Well, everybody's here because they want to win.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to win it.
Your rice is slightly over.
For me, it was al dente.
Horrible remnants of the sea in the form of sand.
Welcome back. Benjamin Marrache this week told the Supreme Court that the multi-million-pound fraud case in which he's a defendant had been mishandled, and the only people who have won are the lawyers, accountants and advisors, who he claims have collectively billed millions of pounds. As a result, Mr. Marrache says he fears there'll be nothing left for the creditors.
Benjamin Marrache has been kinder to the younger of his two brothers who are co-defendants in this trial. He said his brother Solomon Marrache had always tried to be the peacemaker among the brothers. He agreed Solomon was not a partner of the collapsed law firm and thus not directly liable for its debts. He told the Supreme Court Solomon Marrache was also not an accountant and stressed Marchenko had relied on a firm of external accountants who he claims cooked the books. His older brother, Isaac Marrache, has maintained he was based in London and wasn't kept in the loop as to what was happening in Gibraltar. But Benjamin Marrache today claimed if phone records were to be produced as evidence, they would show that Isaac called the Gibraltar office all the time to discuss business. Benjamin Marrache said client accounts had been used to generate wealth. He claimed clients fully expected Marchenko to make their money work and earn substantial interest. In this way, Benjamin Marrache denied using client money dishonestly, as the Crown has claimed. He was generally critical of the way the Crown has handled this case, describing the police arrests on the 10th of February 2010 as madness. Had there been a proper intervention, he said, nobody would have lost. Benjamin Marrache argued that Marchenko weren't allowed time to pay off their debts, which he claims they had every intention of doing and would have done successfully. He also submitted that other local law firms have benefited from Marchenko's problems. In the first instance, he claimed that when Marchenko collapsed, its competitors ravaged the carcass, benefiting from the more than 1,000 companies Marchenko effectively had on its books. The defendant also submitted that the Marchenko drama had been a wake-up call for many local law firms who had since recruited their own in-house accountants, and also for the government, who's changing laws. We've clearly been made a scapegoat of, he said, adding a lot of things are changing now, thanks to Marchenko. Benjamin Marrache will be cross-examined by the prosecution as from tomorrow.
A Gibraltarian former Royal Navy officer has been appointed captain of the port and CEO of the Port Authority. It follows the recent resignation of Roy Stanbrook. Bob Sanguinetti told GBC he's looking forward to taking up the position in May and putting something back into the community that gave him such a wonderful upbringing many years ago.
The Gibraltar Port Authority's new promotional video shows off a dynamic, safety-conscious and reliable organisation. Taking the helm is a Gibraltarian Royal Navy Commodore.
Well, I'm privileged to have had a wonderful, varied and rewarding career in the Navy, and I've been very lucky to serve on over half a dozen ships, commanded a couple of them, and travelled around much of the globe. I've also had a number of shore jobs in areas ranging from strategy through financial planning and managing complex operations, often in positions of leadership. So I feel I'm very well placed to understand how a busy port like Gibraltar operates and how to run it as efficiently, effectively and safely as possible.
Bob Sanguinetti spent most of his career in the Royal Navy and became its youngest ever commanding officer at sea when he took command of a frigate at the age of 33. He's had a glittering career, receiving the French Cross for military valour and serving as head of intelligence at the UK's National Operations Headquarters.
I'm absolutely passionate about the marine environment, and that's probably as a result of my upbringing in Gibraltar, where I would stand on the terrace of the block of flats where I lived and watch ships come and go and wonder what they were doing and how the port managed the movements and so on. I'm absolutely passionate about Gibraltar. Not surprisingly, I'm very proud as a Gibraltarian and also proud of its uniqueness, its culture and its geography. And the role that I'm about to take up as CEO and captain of the port ticks all those boxes. It is a privileged position, and I'm delighted to be able to take it up shortly. And no doubt it will offer exciting opportunities in support of Minister Costa and his wider development plans for the port and tourism more widely.
The Minister for the Port, Neil Costa, says he's sure Bob Sanguinetti's experience and knowledge of maritime matters will enable him to manage the port efficiently and effectively.
Well, I may be biased, but I think that Gibraltar is the most efficient port in the Mediterranean.
Sir Peter Kahuna told GBC the construction company OHL were trying to blackmail the Gibraltar government contractually because they knew there was an election on the horizon. Following the success in the UK court proceedings relating to the airport tunnel project, the former Chief Minister said Gibraltar needs the tunnel, stressing it was never viewed as a party political issue. Our news editor Stephen Nish spoke to him.
Insofar as it is possible to make decisions prudently and sensibly on the basis of the best available legal advice, that is the way these decisions were made, and therefore I was confident that the court would find as it has found. Of course, the dilemma that faced me was simply that the construction company were trying it on. They had bid for the contract, apparently too low, so they then said, and they were just trying to squeeze more money out of the government, probably relying on the fact that there was a general election imminent and the government would be sorely embarrassed by the collapse of the project. I made it perfectly clear, that my desire to be re-elected did not extend to exposing the people of Gibraltar to that sort of behaviour, and that there would be no more money available to them beyond their contract, and then the rest is history, as they say.
And for the rest of this week's news, you can head over 5432. And for the rest of this week's news, you can head over to our website, gbc.gi/news. Don't forget to tune into Radio Gibraltar and GBC Television, of course, for the very latest local news throughout the week. You can also follow us on Twitter and like us on our Facebook page as well. From the team, good night.